So I am weekend at 7 here with my producer, started like at 7. And this is our first broadcast in the gaming talk show category on Twitch.tv. Have a recent change in plans here. Our first broadcast was going to be about the casual versus competitive debate. Unfortunately, neither myself nor Star Driver here actually consider ourselves to be competitive gamers, so we felt it wouldn't be fair to represent that argument without someone here that could properly defend that point of view. So instead, we're changing the subject to the controversy surrounding uh, a game came out in 2010 called Halo Reach.
I don't know about you, but my favorite Halo game of all time. And I'm sure that by the end of this broadcast, you'll see why.
Right. So, uh, I've got a film here, myself playing on my old profile, cosplay, definitely don't believe this. Um, so this on. There won't be any audio from this because our microphone here would pick it up. Uh,
That would be bad.
yeah, it's not really relevant to the conversation. Just kind of let it speak for itself, and we'll just keep talking. So, yeah.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Um, Halo had been out for a while. How long was it?
Well, the first Halo game came out in 2001, Halo Combat Evolved, and that was before there was such a thing as Xbox Live.
Yeah, turned out to be extremely popular, not only because of the story and how well it was done, but to the surprise of everyone, including Bungie.
The developers
Yes,
of the first
the multiplayer turned out to be really spectacular. Everybody liked it. And,
game.
boy, LAN parties became a thing.
Yeah.
Um,
In fact, that was one of the saving graces about the Xbox, which was having very poor sales at first uh, compared to the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube, which was also out at the time. The Xbox mostly was that PlayStation, but the Xbox had 4 control ports on it, whereas the PlayStation 2 only
you
had 2.
needed an adapter.
Exactly. And even if you had that, there were very few games that you could play on a PlayStation 2 that had 4-player options.
At that time, my best friend had a PlayStation 2. He didn't have an adapter, but he had a friend that had an adapter, and he would bring his adapter over, and we would play GoldenEye.
Oh yeah, that was a great game.
Yeah, very similar to Halo.
Yeah.
In fact, more similar to Halo Reach than a lot of people care to admit.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah.
Yeah, so I was playing Halo over at my friend's house, and right about the time Halo 2 came out,
2004.
yes, that's when my son got introduced to Halo and was very upset with me that,
Yeah, because I never got to play.
yeah,
Well, see, well, no, I was introduced to Halo uh, in 2001 when I was 11 because my brother Billy, he got us our first Xbox,
right.
and that was the game that you like to play. Of course, this is back before there was such a thing as 4-player co-op, so it was just the two of them got to play Legendary Campaign together, and I just got to watch.
Yeah.
And then when Halo 2 came out, I said, that's not going to happen. I just went out and bought my own copy.
Yeah, and wouldn't let me play it.
Exactly. Well, you got to play. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
we did.
after you were
Yeah.
beat it on Legendary or whatever.
Well, I beat it on Legendary in co-op mode first with you,
Yeah.
but I had already beat the campaign on at least normal mode by myself. Oh, side note about that, uh, Halo, I believe, I might be wrong, but I think it was the first game to feature 4 levels of difficulty. Before Halo came out, there was only easy, medium, and hard. Um, The reason they came out with the legendary setting for this game is because the default mode in this game is actually heroic. That's the difficulty I'm playing on here in this firefight game, by the way. And the reason I do that is because heroic is, like I said, it's the default setting in Halo. It's actually normal, the normal setting, but most people find it to be too difficult, which is why they created a new setting called easy. So legendary mode is actually hard, heroic is normal, and normal is easy. So the one they invented was the easy one at the bottom.
So anyway, um, uh, by the time Halo 2 was getting long in the booth, my son and I were pretty much in sync as far as Halo was concerned. And then we got Halo 3.
Oh yeah, Halo 3 when that launched, that was a big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
partially due to the fact that there's a huge cliffhanger at the end of Halo 2. And Halo 3, Halo 2, just to back up for a second, was the original Xbox Live game.
Right. That Xbox Live um, uh, became a thing on account of Halo 2.
Exactly. And, since we're talking about it right now, the new Halo game that just came out, the Master Chief Collection, that came out about, what, 4 months ago? It's February now, so that came out in November. Yeah, it's about 4 months ago. When Halo 2 first started, first went on Xbox Live, or invented Xbox Live, it did not work at all. They were doing updates on that game for 6 months before it was even remotely playable.
You know anything about Halo, you know about Halo2sucks.com.
Yeah, that website became a huge thing. And also, this Halo 2 had clan support too.
Yeah.
And again, since Xbox Live was fresh, the concept of talking to people that you've never met while you're playing a game was still kind of new.
Well, and again, even though it was on Xbox Live was pretty shallow.
Yeah.
All of the multiplayer stuff that was in the game, that was there, was in the game. It was
Yeah.
Bungie did all that.
Yeah.
And when Halo 3 came out, Microsoft just
Well,
everything from Halo 2 multiplayer got put in Xbox Live.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's Halo 3 also was the first Halo game to be on the Xbox 360.
Right.
And the Xbox 360, when it launched, already had support for Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 built into the system. That was a thing back then, and it's a thing now, is backwards compatibility. Your old games, sometimes they don't work on the new consoles. But, when we got an Xbox 360, we had 2 PlayStations, and we sold both of those and all the games, literally every game we had except for Halo. And I'd do it again.
Even some of the games that I liked.
Yeah, well.
That's okay though.
Yeah. You remember which ones they were? I didn't think so.
Give me a minute. But yeah, so yeah, Halo 3, and then we got Halo 3 ODST.
Right. Well, Halo Wars came out first.
Well, oh yeah, Halo Wars. And we'll do a show about Halo Wars because
first ever RTS console game,
yes.
real-time strategy, totally unprecedented, as is every new Halo game. every new Halo game that comes out, there's something in that game that's never been done before. The culmination of which is in the Master Chief Collection.
Yes, yes, yes. We'll speak about that. Um,
Yeah, this is a 2-hour broadcast. We love talking about Halo, so if we get off on tangents, that's fine.
yeah, if you haven't figured it out by now, we love Halo.
Yeah.
But yeah, Halo Wars again. Um, a a if you don't know the history behind that, that was a game that was done by an outfit called Ensemble, which was owned by Microsoft, and they were doing the Age of Empires franchise.
That's right.
And they were working on their next game, and somebody at Microsoft decided that there needed to be a Halo RTS game.
Well, that was also uh, when they just negotiated their final contract with Bungie.
Right.
And see, Halo 3 had a wildly popular matchmaking, and Halo saved the Xbox franchise. I mean, Xbox sales are crap in Japan right now. You can't give away an Xbox in Japan. Okay, which is a shame since video games were invented here in America. But,
You're not on camera.
Oh, whoops. Sorry about that. The camera's not secure.
This is his broadcast.
Right.
Yeah, he should be on the camera.
All right, well, I mean, my character's on the camera at least, but I'm not playing. It's the film.
Okay, so Xbox sales in Japan.
Yeah, they were awful. And I made that point to say that it was definitely Halo that saved the Xbox. I mean, you can talk about Call of Duty's matchmaking, but that was multi-platform. It was not exclusively an Xbox game. I mean, if there was no Halo, there would not. I mean, there'd probably be something similar to Xbox Live. I think that's just an inevitable evolution. But I mean, you want to talk about the history of the game, then you've got to talk about Halo. And Bungie is solely responsible for almost all of that. But Microsoft, being Microsoft, they get kind of pushy with deadlines and stuff, and that's why a lot of games, pretty much every product that Microsoft makes comes out too early.
Yes.
And that's just how they are.
Well, it's a huge corporation. They got billion stockholders, and they want their dividend. So a lot of pressure to produce, and you look at Halo 2 was rushed, and we saw the consequences of that. Halo 3 was rushed.
Yes,
and Halo Wars was Microsoft going to Ensemble and saying we need to have a RTS Halo game out there. We need it now. What are you guys working on? Well, never mind. Now it's going to be a Halo game. You got 15 minutes. Get it going.
Yeah.
So the game. Those guys knew nothing about Halo.
Well, not intimately. They knew of Halo. They knew the franchise. I mean, and it comes out clearly in the style of the game that they made. When the game first came out, I was furious with their inaccuracies, canonical inaccuracies, and since then.
Well, to their credit, they made it work.
They did. They did a lot of work to make that campaign, which at the time had many huge holes in it. Well, you got to talk about a little bit of that. For example, the shield world that they go to is not the same kind of shield world that had been described in the books up to that point. And see, that's one. Another thing that upset me was having the prophet of regret there on the battlefield.
Yes.
And of course, if you play Halo 2, obviously the Master Chief does encounter the prophet of regret, but that's because he went there to do that. And the only reason the prophet was there was because it was Halo, and he was trying to activate it, which of course would be bad, and the Master Chief prevented that.
Yeah, but you didn't see the prophet of regret out there leading troops.
Yeah, no, if that were the case, he wouldn't have left Earth.
That's right.
He was the first one there. That was his ship that caused the space elevator to crash. You know,
Mombasa.
exactly. And the fallout of that was all him. He just, that was his ship that discovered Earth. They didn't act, the Covenant, of course, didn't realize that Earth was our home planet.
Yeah, that's why they went to Reach.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they thought Reach was our home. Well, at first they thought it was Harvest. Every time they see a new planet, they just assume that's our home planet. Of course, there was the Cole Protocol enacted by Admiral Cole, who was the guy who, after a 5-year campaign, eventually won Harvest back temporarily from the Covenant. Uh, then after that is when the Halo Wars campaign begins. But yeah, there was the having the Prophet out there, as one of the leaders, and the the Dyson spear, the shield little, not. I forget who it was that invented that concept, but it they just missed some key factors in there.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it's the concussion rifle guys you got to watch out for. Handling them pretty well. This is back when I was still really good at firefight. Ooh, see? What did I tell you? That was my first death so far. Anyway.
So, so Halo Wars, it caused some controversy,
Right.
and there were a lot of concerns, but it was still a great game. It's still a great game.
Yeah. Also, I mean, in the course of the matchmaking life of that game, it started with Ensemble, and then they went under because the matchmaking that game was not doing very well. A lot of people didn't get it. A lot of people didn't understand the concept of an RTS, I think. And another problem was those swords too. Normally, the best thing to do is to jump over those guys. But of course, in that case, there was another sword guy right behind me. Anyway, I think I do pretty good here in a second.
Well, RTS on the console was novel. You had a lot of PC elitists that just they just wanted to trash the console way of doing it because frankly it's tough to pull off on a console.
Right.
I mean, PC you got a
The whole keyboard,
and mouse and all that, and the Xbox you got a whole controller. Yet you're still able to accomplish quite a bit down there.
They did a good job with
They
that.
should have gotten a lot more credit than they did.
Right. Well, also the cutscenes in Halo Wars put Bungie to shame. I mean, in fact, Blur Studios is, to my knowledge, all that remains of Ensemble. Blur Studios are the people who did the cutscenes in the Halo 2 anniversary, which looked spectacular. I mean,
although to be fair, cutscenes wasn't Bungie's thing.
No, I mean, in fairness, Bungie they always use the game engine to do the cutscenes,
right.
which is I don't know. It's you could say it's a cheat, but you could also say that it's a lot more difficult to make convincing. It's got its pros and cons.
Anybody that's done a machinima um, knows what it's like to try to get what you want done using the game. You've got separate software to do the models and do the animation and all that. It's always going to come out better.
Yeah, I mean, now another thing about Halo Wars is Halo Wars came out right when 343 was first conceived as an entity, and the first
Robot took over from Ensemble,
right,
and
then Robot went under,
yeah,
and then 343 became the custodians of the entire Halo franchise.
And there were some attempts made to try to optimize the multiplayer.
Yeah,
A lot of nerfing and buffing, and it was
it just went on way too long. They
yeah.
just everything they changed. Somebody complained about this. They complained about that. You know, and it just got to the point where the game just. I mean, the way the game functions now is completely different from the way I remember playing it when it first came out. Yeah. Which is not to say I'm not still hopeful for a Halo Wars sequel. I mean, anybody who likes that game, you know, is gonna want.
Did you file your taxes with someone else last year?
If so, oh, you went through the same.
Well, then pay us half what you paid them.
Okay.
Get your millions back,
Just use
America!
Okay.
Sorry, folks. This is our first time, so bear with us here.
Yeah, we're trying to keep track of the channel using our two tablets here. Here, you have to turn that sideways. Okay. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm trying to walk us into Reach here.
Right. Okay. So moving off of the Halo Wars topic, at that time Bungie was working on ODST, and their contract with Microsoft, they got a certain amount of money to produce 2 more games. So instead of producing 2 more sequels to Halo 3, they did ODST, which is kind of an in-between filler game where they could test out a lot of stuff, you know, sort of flex their muscles a little bit, and they took what they learned from there and put it into Reach. You know, for example, Firefight was first introduced through ODST, and I personally think the Firefight in this game is a lot better, mostly because you know, ODST uses the Halo 3 game engine, and I personally think that the Reach AI are just way more intelligent, which makes for more interesting gameplay, in my opinion.
And of course, multiplayer on ODST was
Yeah, there's no
kind of
matchmaking.
tedious. You
Yeah,
know, you had to go into the forums and tell people your plan. You had to get it all set up and everything. And
yeah, I mean, you could invite your friends and stuff, but there was no player versus player mode. There's either firefight or the campaign mode. You know, which
the firefight itself was fun.
right, and you know the campaign mode. ODST was the first Halo game to introduce an open world aspect.
Right.
And they made a complete map of New Mombasa. You can go around when you're playing as the rookie. I should mention when you're in the night mode. Then you can go around anywhere you want, look for all the audio files, and what's nice about that is, what's interesting about it is the way that the enemies will spawn, depending on where you go.
Right.
So no matter which way you go this way, you go that way, somebody will show up for you to fight.
Yeah, you can pretty much play all night just doing that.
Yeah, just walking around doing that. I mean, but again, that gets old faster than you think. I mean, I still haven't collected all the audio files. I just haven't. Although they are interesting, they tell stories of a really interesting character from the Halo universe, an AI called Virgil, who actually merges with an engineer, which engineers, for those of you who have only played the Master Chief Collection, couldn't know anything about engineers. They're my personal favorite Covenant species. Uh, Biological computers. You won't see them here in this broadcast because I have, well, in this video, because for this one I have the hazards turned off. They're the little floating guys that give overshields to your enemies in this game, and you know, you get one of them on your side there at the end of ODST, and they're also my favorite unit in the Halo Wars again. Not to go back on that tangent, but there they come in handy
Yeah.
if you play as Covenant. So anyway,
So, um, uh, ODST did well, and
yeah. Well, another thing with ODST is you got the Halo 3 matchmaking, which had it featured better graphics, and then also uh, some DLC maps that you can get access to a little bit earlier. Also, if you bought ODST, you got an invite to the Halo Reach beta test. So they did a good job marketing that game.
okay, so
That actually brings us to Reach.
it actually brings us to Reach. Now, at the time, we've been playing Halo 3 and Halo 3 ODST, and the community was ready for Halo 4.
Exactly.
That's everybody was going, okay, there's something big coming here, and it's got to be Halo 4.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what everybody was kind of expecting. So, um, then they have the Reach beta, and that should have been a clue to those who had access to it that this game, although it's a Halo game, you know, no mention of Master Chief. Um, you're not a Spartan 2.
Yeah, you're actually Spartan 3.
You're a Spartan 3.
A lot of people don't understand the difference. Spartan 2s are actually much tougher than Spartan 3s.
Yeah, the numbering system,
it's a little
intuitively
misleading.
you're thinking, okay, if Spartan 2 is this and a Spartan 3 must be, like.
Right. Well, the thing is, if you read the books, they were running out of Spartans, and they needed more because we were losing this war with the Covenant, which is where the Spartan 3 program.
Okay,
comes
now
in.
and Spartan 2s were under the purview of the UNSC Marine Corps.
Yeah.
They were trained by Marines, and that Master Chief is a Marine.
Yes.
He's actually, if you asked him, he would tell you he's a Marine first and a Spartan second. If you know anything about the Marine Corps, that's how it is.
I don't know about that. I don't think he might consider himself a Spartan first.
Well, he definitely would consider himself a Spartan Marine.
Right.
The Spartan 3s were Army.
Yeah.
Which explained why they use a slightly different set of weapons.
Yeah.
And there was some difference in the way that they approached combat.
Yeah.
I myself was in the Army, and so I was able to see that. If you've never been in the military, you might want to think that they all operate the same. They do not.
No, they don't.
Okay. But Spartan 3s were mass produced,
Yeah.
and they operated as an army. And they did things the Army way.
Yeah.
And as such, and I really believe that Bungie understood that. I really believe that Bungie had some kind of communication with people that understood the military. And
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I've seen it in all the way back in the Halo 3 Legendary Edition, the one where you get this Master Chief helmet here. You can't really see it on the screen, but I got it. Anyway, there's a disc that comes with it called Halo 3 Essentials, and you can go in there. There's a lot of cool videos, and one of them it shows them getting some sort of little going through some training exercises with actual, I think they're Marines. That was Halo 3. So, actually looking at some combat training. And again, Master Chief, uh, in the games, you don't see him with the team ever, really. I mean, he's the leader of all the Spartans, the Spartan 2s. And, of course, by the time Halo Combat Evolved starts, he's pretty much the only one. There were actually two Spartans aboard the Pillar of Autumn. One of them was Linda. And if you go in the anniversary, you can go in and check, and um, in the mission where you go, the first mission where you're going back, and you can look down to see that first room that you spawn in, there'll be a console there. One of them will say that there's Master Chief, and another one there will indicate that Linda was on board. Of course, Master Chief didn't know that at the time. He didn't know she was there. Uh, but yeah, there are other Spartan 2s alive at that point. Spartan 2s, you're not allowed to list a Spartan 2 as killed in action. You're only allowed to list them as missing in action. It's for a morale thing. But Spartans die all the time. In fact, of all the Spartans that are listed MIA, I think only about 3 or 4 of them officially are come back in the story. One of them is George in this game. He's a Spartan 2, the only Spartan 2 on the Noble team. And he's the big guy, the guy with the big gun. He was born heavy, which means he was born on Reach. Reach has, I think, 3 times the gravity of Earth. I think it's 3 times larger than Earth.
Yes, yes, it's a huge planet.
Yeah, and it's just one big military force.
Yes.
Reach is where the Spartan program takes place. It's where all the Spartans are trained, and it's which is why the Covenant thought it was our home world. They came to Reach and they thought, oh, here's this huge planet that's where they encountered way more resistance than any other planet. So they just assumed Reach was our home world, and when they glassed it, they figured, all right, humanity's done, which we pretty much were. But then, which is why I think the Prophet of Regret thought he'd be safe if he went, looking for human artifacts or foreign artifacts. That's how the Covenant finds things. They have these detectors that locate foreign artifacts, and that's what leads them to our planets. And Reach, of course, had a ton of that shit.
Yeah. So, now, Reach. Again, this is not a story about Spartan 2s, not a story about Master Chief. It's a story about the UNSC and the Covenant arriving there.
And subsequently destroying the planet.
It's a prequel. It's where the real story of us and the Covenant, where it really hits the fan.
Yeah, it's the climax of the Human Covenant War, essentially.
So what we got is a game where you've got the Covenant, all the Covenant, at their peak.
Oh yes, this game, there's no Flood, no Sentinels, no Prometheans. It's all Covenant. And this game actually has the widest variety of enemies out of all the Halo games, including Halo 4. If you count, every Covenant species is represented in this game except for the Samshian, for obvious reasons. And also, side note about that, this fleet that destroys Reach is actually being led by the Helvetinui, who later becomes the Arbiter. I mean, that's just sort of a side note, but yeah. He's the one leading this fleet. He doesn't show up in the game, but at the beginning of Halo 2, he's getting, punished not for this, but for his failure in Halo Combat Evolved, where he lets the Halo Ring get destroyed.
So, um, uh, the game comes out, people buy it, and they start to notice some things like, gosh, my character doesn't respond the same way that he does in Halo 3. Doesn't run as fast, doesn't jump as high.
Doesn't throw grenades as far.
Yeah, what's up with this game? What is it broken? What it's and no uh, thinking. Well, I'm not a Spartan 2. I'm a Spartan 3, and this logic that says, well, if I'm a Spartan 3, I should be better.
Yeah.
Um, uh, uh, Things just seem to be way off.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the the big thing, loadouts.
And loadouts and armor abilities.
Armor abilities. Oh my God.
They.
the, uh, uh, and we're going to go. We're going to talk about armor abilities, because we're talking about reach. That's when people talk about reach, they just love to diss the armor abilities. Two in particular. Um, but it, the armor abilities were the game changers.
Yeah.
And um, uh, uh, and I have to think that well, there are probably a number of reasons why Bungie created the armor abilities.
Yeah.
They wanted to up the ante in the game. They wanted to give you more things. They wanted to give you. They wanted to broaden your horizon.
Right, because in Halo 3, again, which had wildly popular matchmaking, but a lot of the matches pretty much were the same. You get these battle rifles, you go out there, you shoot each other with the battle rifles, if somebody gets close, you throw a sticky grenade on them, and then the rest is just power weapons, you know? And, it's great if you're into that. I never, I always liked the assault rifle, obviously, but you try and use it in Halo matchmaking, you know. This assault rifle, by the way, is by far the best one, except maybe the one that used in the Halo 5 beta test. It's the most accurate. Uh, this one, if you have the Legendary Edition strategy guide for Reach, it actually lists the assault rifle as a short to mid-range weapon. The DMR is a mid to long-range weapon. You know, whereas in every other game, the assault rifle is just treated pretty much exclusively as a short-range weapon. And it's obvious that's how 343 feels because of the way they handled their title update for Halo 4, which we might get into a little bit later. Let's stick to Reach right now.
So everybody thought the assault rifle, they called it like your spray and pray weapon. But if you're watching this video right now, you'll see that my son prefers the assault rifle. I mean, out of all the weapons he could choose to use in this game, he pretty much sticks with the assault rifle because it's effective.
Oh, yeah.
If you use it the way it's intended, it is effective. It does what an assault rifle is supposed to do.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just short controlled bursts. It's not hard.
And
it's Master Chief's favorite weapon, incidentally.
You see a picture of Master Chief. What's he holding? He's got an assault rifle.
Except for, oh shit. Sorry about that. Microphone.
Didn't bust anybody's ears with that.
Okay. Anyway, and it also says in the books that he does prefer the assault rifle. And again, in Halo 2, he doesn't have an assault rifle because nobody does, but he is holding twin SMGs.
Yeah. So, we get these armor abilities, and why did we get the armor abilities? I have to think it's because Bungie uh, they were gathering all this data about the way people were playing the game,
Yeah.
and they had tons of it. And uh, I'm pretty sure they could see because it was obvious to me, and I wasn't collecting any data. I was
Yeah.
just in there getting my butt kicked by most people. And it was pretty clear that uh, the strategy of choice was to have a battle rifle and to get your hands on some sticky grenades, and then you could pretty much rule.
Yeah.
If you were playing in matchmaking in Halo 3 and you weren't using an assault, or I'm sorry, if you weren't using a battle rifle,
then you were just stuck.
Just-
You were shit out of luck then at that point.
and I like using a lot of the Covenant weapons,
Oh,
which a lot of times didn't even appear on the map, but if they did, um, they just weren't a match for the battle rifle.
Yeah, I mean, you had the Carbine, which has a similar range, and but try and find one
Yeah.
on the map.
Yeah.
There's most maps just don't have any Covenant weapons, except of course the sticky grenades. Everybody loves those.
Yeah. Now, if you did get in a match where the carbine was there, um, personally, I could hold my own against someone that had a battle rifle.
It's almost a similar skill.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you run out of ammunition.
Yeah.
And then there you were.
Yeah, if you're using a battle rifle, everyone you kill is dropping you more ammo.
Right.
You pretty much never run out unless you're in a location where you can kill the enemy before they get to you.
So you run around the map, you see an enemy, you pepper them a bit with your battle rifle, and then toss a sticky grenade at them, and then
Or a frag.
yeah,
It's pretty much the same thing. If their shields are already down, you can just throw a grenade.
and then that was it for that enemy. Go on to the next one. I mean
Yeah.
that was pretty much it.
And that's millions of encounters a day like that happening all across the world. No variation. You just try to get those 4 shots. Well, 4 shots if you're an MLG, 5 if you're not. Just try to get those headshots, and that's it. And that became pretty much the standard for determining what is a skilled player. Pretty much, it became the established.
And you got all these famous guys, Walshy and
Bravo, all these guys. I mean, you obviously getting really good with the battle rifles, which is your only option in the professional tournaments. I mean, you don't have a chance to use anything else. You spawn with it, and that's it. I'm not saying that I could take this assault rifle and take those guys on, but I think I could at least trip them up enough to where one of my teammates could get a kill. Obviously, I don't know, can't prove a negative. So
yeah, but that by the time Halo 3 was done, the community had just decided that's Halo,
right,
battle rifle and grenades,
pretty
and
much.
to this day, that's what they'll tell you.
Yeah.
They don't want any other weapons in the game.
Right.
Battle rifle, they'll accept the DMR.
Yeah, in lieu of having a battle rifle.
But Bungie said, no, the game needs to be more than that. And so there needs to be some more strategies that people needed to develop to combat this BR grenade combo. And if you look at the way that all of the armor abilities were designed, that is primarily what they're for.
Yeah.
Is to make it more difficult for somebody that's comfortable with a BR and a grenade to kill you.
Yeah.
And boy, did they hate that.
Yeah. That drove people insane. Not being able to stick people, not being able to just shoot people with a battle rifle and have them, fall to the ground dead. I mean, it's true. If you look at any armor ability, uh, that is exactly the kind of strategy that it will disrupt. If you have any kind of variation, you know, if you have a different strategy, or if you have a strategy that's original, then the armor abilities are not a factor. You know, I mean, but if you're a battle rifle guy who uses sticky grenades, any given armor ability will trip you up. Any given armor ability in Reach. Not we're not talking about the ones in Halo 4.
No. That's a separate issue.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. So let's talk about the armor abilities. Let's start with.
Well, let's start with this one I'm using right here, which is the the drop shield. Uh, this one, like you can tell, it's the only one I'm using here in in this game. And in firefighting in general, I tend to just stick with this one because in firefight you have a limited number of lives, which I seem to be running out of at that point. Yeah, it's a 57-minute long video. Anyway, um, there's two parts to this vulnerability. You've got the shield itself, and then you've got a field inside that shield that uh, heals you, heals your health bar. Reach is the Halo Combat Evolved had health back, had a health bar. Halo 2 and Halo 3 did not. ODST had health, and Reach has health. Halo 4 does not, and Halo 5, the Halo 5 beta test does not. I don't know what the actual game is going to be like, because it's coming out a year after the beta test is released. And there's a lot of shit that they can change in a year, so people talk about Halo 5. When you hear people talking about Halo 5, just understand that they mean the beta test. Ooh, dang. Anyway, I don't think these numbers get me. Now,
by the way, I find grenade launch to be more effective against hunters, but that's just me.
well, I can't get a grenade launcher.
I know you have to spawn with it. So out of all the enemies you encounter in firefight, the hunters. When I play firefight, I pick the Spectre loadout.
Which is camouflage, magnum, and grenade launcher.
Yeah, and I don't use the camouflage because it doesn't help in firefight. But that grenade launcher against hunters, they never get close. They never get close to that point where you've got to do the dance. You know,
that dance is the only way I take out hunters. I just enjoy it too much, I suppose. I mean, I've always been a fan of dancing around hunters ever since Combat Evolved. Yeah, which actually, it was a long time before I found out you could kill the Combat Evolved hunters with a magnet with one shot. Because I always would, you know, I'd be dancing around them, shooting them with this, shooting them with that. These hunters are again the most intelligent hunters I've seen. See, an interesting thing about the hunter in ODST, well, I should say, uh, Combat Evolved hunters, they had a fuel rod cannon just like these ones did. The Halo 2 and Halo 3 hunters, they featured an assault beam uh, attachment on their arm, which fires a big steady stream. And in ODST is the only game that features hunters with both a fuel rod gun like these and the assault beam like the ones in Halo 3. And I think they did that in ODST so they could test to see which one was more effective. And they came to the conclusion that this one is more effective. And I agree. That big assault beam is easy to track. You know, having a single shot hit you is a lot harder to predict. You know, and it just makes for more fun gameplay. Also, the hunters in this game have a few more moves that hunters in the other games don't. And like for example, they got this one swinging move. You won't see it now, but next time you're playing a Reach, try to watch for it. They have a swing move. They swing their shield forward, and they kind of come forward too at the same time. I don't think they had that move in Halo 3, although I might be wrong. that one
I
remember.
don't know. I don't know if it was that or something else, but there was a big surprise move in there that.
Yeah, it's one where they swing forward and they just swing like that. And oh no, the surprise move is they didn't have any defense for their right hand side if you got up really close. Uh, so they made this new move where they could kind of swing forward. You know, I should probably stop talking about that because I don't really remember how they worked in Halo 3. But I just remember having a hard time with them uh, in this game. And then they're also, well, one thing that's definitely new in this game is the fact that you can blast off their back with our armor, right, with a well-placed grenade or a decent power weapon. And yeah, you're right about using the grenade launcher against sprinters if you can. It's a little bit easier.
But you were talking about drop shield.
Right. Um, just to bring it back, the only comparable thing to it is, well, you had the regen field and the bubble shield in Halo 3, and they essentially took the two of those and sort of combined them into one armor ability. Um, but they also diminished the effects of both. The regen field actually, since there was no health bars, didn't recharge your health, but it recharged your shields. And the bubble shield was actually totally uh, impervious to damage unless you got inside and destroyed the actual little generator. But from the outside, if you're standing in a bubble shield, you were invulnerable. The drop shield in this game has a limited amount of damage it can take before it will drop, and again, it does not recharge your shields at all. It does provide cover, but what it does is increase your health. It'll recharge your health bars. And, you know, this is one of the armor abilities that people, I mean, people had problems with almost all of them. Uh, this one wasn't the most controversial one by far, but it was one that a lot of people thought was unfair in matchmaking. Even though it was only in matchmaking, I think, in Invasion. And, you know, if you want to talk about balance in Invasion, I think you're kind of barking up the wrong tree there. Invasion, again, is a playlist that is exclusively in Reach, as is Firefight as an actual playlist. Firefight is in ODST, but not in matchmaking. Am I in the bonus round here? Yeah, I'm in the bonus round. I did the whole set, so my shield's not recharging. Again, I'm using the drop shield here. In the bonus round, all skulls are on, which means black eye is on, which means your shields don't recharge unless you get a successful melee on an opponent. So now I'm actually in set 2. This must be a custom game. Yeah, I know it is because I spawned the hologram in the shop earlier. It was definitely a custom game. Also, the hazards are turned on.
Okay, want to talk about hologram then?
Okay, hologram. Uh, that's my favorite one.
Yes.
That I love the hologram. Nobody gets it. You know, like most people, they don't understand it. You know, particularly people at 343i, I would say, because hologram first appeared in Reach, and it's actually the only uh, armor ability that made it from Reach into Halo 4. And you can tell by the differences.
Well, sprint.
Oh, well, that's not an armor ability in Halo 4. It's default.
Well,
I mean,
I was thinking in terms of armor abilities in Reach that made it into Halo 4 the game.
Right. Well, yeah, the sprint nobody really had a problem with in this game. People found sprint to be fine as default.
I was probably the only one where there were, I would say, no corruptions.
Right. Also, Call of Duty, I think it pretty much always had sprint in it as a default thing. So
that might have been the only complaint. Oh, you're copying Call of Duty.
Yeah, which is, it's a nonsense argument in my opinion. But I mean,
We
yeah,
could do a whole new show
about the difference between Halo and Call of Duty. Unfortunately, I don't play that game, so again, it wouldn't really be fair. Well, I played it a little bit with a little bit of Modern Warfare, never really online though. I just did not have a taste for it.
just have no appeal.
Right. And anyway, hologram. In this game, if you have a hologram, there's a few things that are different between this one and the one in Halo 4. And as I explain it, I think it'll become clear what 343 I was trying to accomplish. In this game, if you look at an enemy hologram, there will be no change in the reticle. In Halo 4, if you look at an enemy hologram, your reticle will turn red, as it does anytime you look at an enemy. And also, in Halo Reach, when you hit a hologram, um, what it does is it'll shimmer. I mean, when I say hit, I mean when you actually run up and melee it. Oh shit! Whoops. But anyway, and when you run up and melee a hologram, it'll shimmer, and the sound it makes will indicate that it's not a solid object. In Halo 4, when you melee a hologram, it'll sound exactly as though you were meleeing a person. You know, those things, you know, you might consider those improvements. Personally, uh, I never had a problem using hologram. You know, it works fine just for me with or without that shit. I mean,
Well, you didn't mention the duration.
well, I was getting to that. In Halo Reach, uh, the hologram lasts for 7 seconds. Well, it lasts for 10 seconds, but it has a recharge of 7 seconds, which means your hologram will stay out 3 seconds longer than if 3 seconds after you have the ability to produce another hologram. And once you produce a new hologram, the old one will disappear. In Halo 4, the hologram lasts 7 seconds flat. Now, what that means is, since the hologram walks at normal player speed forwards in one direction, that means the reach hologram actually travels uh, for a longer distance relative to the player speed in the game. See, in Halo 4, the player moves faster because you're back to being, Master Chief, and of course, in matchmaking, it's just about 4, but it's the same player speed. Actually, they increased the player speed in the title update, and I don't know if that affects the hologram or not, but it probably does. Anyway, hologram moves forward at normal player speed. In Reach, you can't have sprint and hologram at the same time. In Halo 4, you have sprint by default, which means the hologram is actually twice as slow as any actual player. Which is a factor in Reach. You might have to deal with other people who have sprint, and it has to do with, you know, the relative distance between you and the enemy and how far your hologram can travel, and at what point they're going to be able to see the hologram, and etc. Also, the fact that you've got 10 seconds, a 10-second hologram life with a 7-second recharge means you can have your hologram last for 10 seconds, or you can have it last for 9 seconds, or you can have it last for 8 seconds, which creates more confusion in the enemy. If they realize you have a hologram, that means that you're a walking distance of about 10 seconds away. If you see a hologram vanish, that means that the person who cast the hologram is going to be within a certain radius.
Right.
Now, if you've got sprint and hologram, that gets thrown out of balance totally. For example, you could send a hologram in one direction and then sprint off in the other direction. But of course, then your opponent also has sprint, so they can follow you just as easily. making the hologram actually less effective than if you had, than it was in Halo Reach, I should say. And uh, that kind of thing. I mean, also in Halo 4, there's a tactical package called Mobility, which gives people infinite sprint. I think there are some default loadouts in Halo 4 that feature holograms with this option, so you can sprint infinitely. Also, if you see somebody sprinting, you automatically know they're not a hologram. So if you set, if you cast a hologram and then turn around and sprint in the other direction, the enemy's gonna know which one is real. Okay. It doesn't matter if the reticle turns red on the other one or not. In Reach, you cast a hologram. I've done this before. Cast a hologram right in front of somebody's face, you know, and they've shot the wrong guy. It happened, you know. And in Halo 4, I'm not gonna say I haven't had that option, but it renders the sprint kind of inert at that point. Also, uh, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to use them. Okay. So now, load up. How we doing on time? Okay. Got about an hour left in the chat. So,
Not enough time, but
yeah, not enough time.
we'll try to squeeze in as much as possible before the broadcast is over. Because we're only on the second armor building here.
Yeah.
But yes, heck, we could do an hour just on hologram because
Yeah. Well, because I invented that dang armor ability, and I don't care what anyone said, it was way better in Reach. Also, in Reach you can play as an elite or a Spartan, which means that that means just means there's more options for using a hologram. I mean, so automatically the entire sandbox in Reach is doubled when you're talking about making loadouts, because unlike, you can also play as an elite in Halo 2 and Halo 3, but in Reach you have a separate health and shielding system. It was actually designed, in the beta test, it was designed to be exactly the same as Spartan 2 from Halo 3, but they found that to be too overpowered during the course of the beta test. So they nerfed it a little bit. They nerfed the speed and I think the recharge of your health a little bit. Anyway, let's get to the big ones. Let's get to okay. Well, let's see. There's 7 armor abilities in Reach. There's 8 in Halo 4. A couple drop shield and hologram. Um, let's go for camouflage next. Active camouflage.
active camo.
Again, there's 2 parts to every armor ability in Reach, and there's only 1 part to every armor ability. Well, except for camouflage. That's right. Camouflage also made it into Halo 4, and they they changed it just enough to render it much more stupid. Because what they had is, again, active camouflage and reach. Another one of those armor abilities that where they took 2 features that were in Halo 3 and uh, sort of combined them. In Halo 3, you had equipment called the radar jammer, which showed up very rarely in matchmaking. It's in the campaign a little bit. It's on Last Resort in the matchmaking. I think that's the only map that actually features it. Uh, what it does is it creates a whole bunch of red dots on your radar, to jam it, so to make it confusing. And in Halo Reach, when you activate your active camouflage armor ability, it also produces a radar jammer effect. Um, and I found it to be pretty effective. The camouflage requires a lot of character control. by which I mean controlling what your Spartan does in order to stay camouflaged. For example, uh, if you take damage while you're camouflaged and your shields start to recharge, your shield will shine over the camouflage. But if you take damage and then deactivate the camouflage, wait for your shields to start charging and then reactivate it, then you'll be invisible. That's what I mean by character control. There's also things like using the radar jammer. You know, in Invasion, I like to use active camouflage to confuse people. You know, I use that radar jammer and use that when I'm moving, and then I crouch when I turn that off. And when you're crouched, you don't appear on the radar. So I can use that to kind of sneak up on people. And then in Halo 4, you've got your camouflage and you've got your radar jammer, but the icons on the radar are blue, not red. But your icon still appears as red when you're moving.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't work. Like nobody's looking for blue dots on their radar. Those are meaningless. All it is a dead giveaway of exactly where you are. And sort of to add insult to injury, they added I think it's a support upgrade called Stealth, which eliminates the radar jammer, but it cloaks your red dot, but it makes it blue. Okay, so there's no radar jammer, and you still appear on the radar, but as one blue dot. So it effectively just works the same way it normally would. So if you're paying it, it's only a problem if you don't have an HD TV, which I think most people probably do at this point. If you're on, an Xbox 360, those all have HDMI ports. All the later models. You can't even attach some of them to the old TVs, right? And again, if you're looking at your radar, it's kind of an obvious thing. Um, anyway,
So yeah, it's like you've got this armor ability that's supposed to make it hard for you to be found,
yeah,
and then it just gives away your location.
yeah, yeah. Kind of defeats the purpose. Anyway, so that's three. Another armor ability is
Well, sprint.
right. We got sprint. You can sprint for 4 seconds, and then you have to stop and then recharge. Um, yeah, we'll reach. Again, that was one that nobody really had a problem with. I think they made that.
It was at best the argument was oh that's well it was there's the blanket argument that they were all get out of jail free things,
Right.
it's okay if you got sprint and your shields are down and your health is down, you can just run away.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which in a combat situation, that's precisely what you would do. But
Yeah.
I guess when you're playing Halo, you're just supposed to stand there and take it.
Yeah. I mean, and if they've got sprint, you probably got sprint too. I mean, you
More
could
than
be.
likely.
I mean, if you don't, and sprint is a problem for you, then I mean, maybe you ought to use that. Of course, if you've got a sniper rifle, it don't make much of a difference either. But again, they did end up making sprint a default option in Halo 4. And in the Halo 5 beta test, they made it so that your shields won't recharge while you're sprinting. Not only that, but if you start sprinting while your shield is down, that resets the recharge timer, which that one I had to learn the hard way. But again, that's just for the beta. I don't know if that's how it's going to be when the actual game comes out. Although
I'd say out of all the original Reach armor abilities that 343 dealt with, they probably understood sprint the most.
yeah, well,
And listen to the feedback about the negative feedback about sprint the most. and that's the one that they've done the most with as far as making it to where it is acceptable to the community.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think it's pretty widely accepted now. I mean, you, I mean, uh, the other thing about Sprint that people complained about is they said that all the maps got bigger
yeah,
because of Sprint, when it is exactly the opposite. The maps get bigger in every game,
yeah.
people. Maps in Halo 2 are bigger than the ones in Combat Evolved. Maps in Halo 3 are bigger than the ones in Halo 2 and 1 combined. Maps in Halo Reach are the matchmaking maps are to this day, I think Boneyard and Spire are the biggest ones ever. I mean, so yeah, no, they didn't make Sprint and then go, oh, you're too fast. Well, let's do hours and hours and let's do hundreds of hours of more work to make the maps larger to make it balance out for this armor ability.
For this one armor ability.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, they made the maps first, and then they found out, oh, you need sprint because your player speed in this game is decreased from the other games.
Because you're Spartan 3.
And because Reach has 3 times the gravity
Yes,
of Earth,
the gravity thing.
which people again don't realize, but yeah. So yeah, you need sprint in this game, plain and simple. Actually, I don't think you really do need it in Halo 4, but again, the maps are pretty big, and some of those Spartan Ops missions, would be kind of monotonous. Plus, the vehicle balance in that game is really bad, so sometimes it's better to just sprint.
Yeah. We'll talk about vehicle balancing again. That's a whole nother broadcast.
Yeah, probably have to save that for a different one. Anyway, so we covered drop shield, camouflage, sprint, hologram.
Evade?
Right, evade. I almost forgot about that one. That one's actually really nice. They did not resurrect this one for Halo 4.
Thruster pack.
Well, Thruster Pack doesn't work the same way because, well, I mean, it has sort of the same effect, and the Thruster Pack was eventually put into uh, the Halo 5 beta test as well as a default Spartan ability, they're called. But the thruster pack, you can use that in midair. Evade, you can't use that in midair. And they came up with the idea of the thruster pack. That's a derivative of something that's in the books because all Spartans, that armor, it's not just armor, it's a space suit. Okay, you're a space marine, you're a space Spartan, you need to be trained in zero gravity combat.
In fact, it comes out in the books that all Marines train for zero G combat. All Marines.
Yeah, not just Spartans. And of course, Spartans, having a lot more mass than regular Marines, and of course being much more expensive, they have these thruster packs that help them maneuver in zero gravity. The way they're used in Halo 4 is not what they're designed for. They're not. They just replaced that because Evade was in this game. They put Evade in this game for the elites.
Yeah, it's an elite thing.
Yeah, it showed up in Invasion first, and they later branched that out to some Invasion variants called Skirmish, that Spartans could also use Evade. Um, but again, cannot use Evade in midair. Let's see. You use the thruster. I think you can only use the thruster pack once before you have to recharge it. Whereas Evade, you can use twice. And again, it's only on the ground. And the thruster pack, you can use that in midair, which is kind of nice. It's non-canonical, really, because I say that because, like I said, that's not what the thruster packs are designed for. It wouldn't really work that way. Of course, you're a Spartan 4, so maybe they designed. Actually, let's see. How did they cover that? They made when you first use the thruster pack in the campaign, there's this civilian lady there standing. She says, "Use this. It's rated for heavy armor." So it could be that it's a special kind of thruster pack and not the kind that's built into the civilian armor. But yeah, Evade. That's one they have back in Reach. I think they made that balance out because in Invasion, all the Spartans they start off with this sprint, and then since the default player speed for Elite is the same as sprint is with Spartans, they came up with this Evade thing to kind of balance that out a little bit, and I think it works fine. You know, again, that evolved into the thruster pack, which is now part of the default Halo 5 beta test, which I don't have a problem with. You know, really, I don't have a problem with any of this stuff. You know, it's not in my nature to have problems with things that I can't control. Uh, I mean, no matter what Halo game comes out next, no matter what it's like, I'll defend it to the death against anyone who says it's bullshit. You know, I just have most practice with this game because people really have some strong opinions. So see, that's five of them. The only ones left are the big two.
Yes, the big two. Um, and out of the big two, one of them is my favorite as in it's one that I like to use. The other one is my favorite because it ticks so many people off. I personally don't use it, but um, I have so much fun defending it.
Yeah.
So flip a coin. Which one do you want to start with?
Well, we'll start with the jetpack.
Okay.
Since we're comparing games today before.
Now the jetpack. That's the one that I use.
Right.
Um, I fell in love with it when in the campaign you meet up with the bullfrogs. Remember the bullfrogs?
Oh yeah, those ODSTs. Here, grab a jetpack and try to keep up with it.
Yeah. And and then they say that, and then they take off.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, oh boy. And then I put that thing on and tried to keep up, and that particular level, the only way to get to the other part of the map was to use a jetpack. You had to use it. So,
right.
But you go out there and there's one obvious route to get to the other part of the map, but there's like three other routes that you can take if you use the jetpack effectively.
Right.
Okay. And I, I guess I have to start with just the concept of the jetpack itself and what it means uh, for a military unit. I mean, it's a mobility thing. Um, you you can cover a lot of ground. You can get to high ground. You can do a lot of the things that you need to be able to do when you're facing an enemy.
Right.
And I have a standard saying about the jetpack in that any military commander, I don't care what country, what planet, whatever kind of military force it is, any military commander would give a very precious body part away for the chance to equip his troops with jetpacks.
Yeah, of course.
The Nazis tried it. They came up with one. Obviously, it didn't work, but they tried it.
Yeah.
Because they have this thing about shock troops. Okay, if you've got a group of soldiers with jetpacks, you have a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, when you talk about the staple strategy of the average Halo 3 player, which is your 4 shots to the head and a grenade. The jetpack takes that, just wipes that completely out.
Yeah.
And that was what was so frustrating.
Well, that and the fact that you can get to the power weapons faster.
Yes.
I mean, that would give people insane. Hang on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. Even though the drawback is, once you're in the air, you're a sitting duck.
Yeah.
Although you're not sitting, but
well, you're a flying duck.
You're a clay pigeon.
Yeah.
That's what you are. Which is, that's the risk you take when you use the jetpack. Is that you're going to get right in the enemy's line of sight, and they're going to be able to draw a bead on you.
Yeah.
So you have to use it wisely. Um, but still, all this hue and cry of, well, the guy, he can fly over my head and I can't aim. Yeah, duh.
Yeah, that's the point. That's what the jetpack does.
That's why he's doing it, so that you can't shoot him.
Yeah.
And you should be aware that he can do that and not let him do that.
Yeah.
That's how you don't need to nerf it. You don't need to buff something else. You just need to act like you're on a battlefield and you've got an enemy that you need to get rid of. He's wearing a jetpack. That means he can fly up in the air. Be prepared for that. That's all you really have to do.
I mean, the general rule in any combat situation is to take the high ground. If you take the highest point in the map, what good is their jetpack if they can't get above you? If you just go up there and hang out, but a lot of people have a problem with camping, well, I mean, just in my experience, people who have problems with jetpacks also have problems with camping. No problem with sprint because they like, sprinting around, running and gunning. All I'm saying is, there's a time for that, and then there's a time for this. Sometimes, if the enemy can fly, then then they're obviously going to try and take the high ground, no matter what. So, if you prevent them from doing that, then they're the ones who have to change their strategy, not you. And, see, Jetpack is another one that made it into Halo 4. It's more similar to the post-title update Jetpack in Reach. What I mean by that is after 343 became the custodian of Halo Reach, they did a title update that changed about half the gameplay in this game. And that title update, as soon as they did the title update, Reach dropped out of the top 10 most played games on Xbox Live. Before the title update, it was right up there. It was not as popular as Halo 3, I'll admit, but it was in the top 10. And then the title update comes out, drops. And what they did to Jetpack was they made it so that the vertical lift was faster, but you didn't stay in the air as longer. And that's been continued in Halo 4. The fact that the jetpack is still there, I think is kind of amazing. Behind you would.
Yeah, there might have been one or two people at 343 that did like the jetpack, so
well,
or they were able to make a case for it or something.
Well, who doesn't like a jetpack? The only people that don't like it are people who can't deal with an opponent who has superior tactics. That's really the only complaint. There's no reason to hate a jetpack unless you're getting killed by people using the jetpack, and
which in the forums, I spent a lot of time in the forums and particularly over this subject, and it was always funny that a guy would come in and just wail and moan about the jetpack, and then when you say, well, is it because you keep getting killed? by people using a jetpack. And oh no 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 no, not me. No no, I always devastate those guys, man. They as soon
Yeah.
as I hear a jetpack, I just turn around and kill them, left and right. Doesn't bother me, but my friends,
Yeah.
they can't handle it, and for that reason, they should take it out of the game.
Yeah.
Not for me, no, I'm okay, but them, well, I'm thinking about them.
Yeah. Real humanitarian.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just I can see the frustration in that Halo 4 you can make your own loadouts, and I tried for a while to go without making a jetpack loadout, and I found that pretty much impossible. I mean, if other people are using a jetpack, then I found the best strategy is to just use a jetpack against them. You know, I mean, if they've got a jetpack and you've got a jetpack, it's a fair fight. Bottom line. Okay, it's worth complaining about if you're not willing to change your strategy.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only argument. I'm sorry.
You can't. I mean, the people that come in and offend, they'll bring that up, and what you get in response, I shouldn't have to change.
Yeah.
Okay,
Boy.
buddy. I hope you never get in a real battle.
Yeah, man. I mean, God, that's just such a backwards notion. I'm sorry. You do have to change. It's a fight. It's a battle. It's a war, for God's sake. If you don't change, then you're gonna lose. And you don't have anyone to blame but yourself, dude. I'm sorry. And if your enemy can use, there's no situation where your enemy can use a jetpack and you can't. Doesn't exist in the game of Halo. You always have that option. In Halo 4, not in the Master Chief Collection, but in Halo 4, you can modify your loadouts in the middle of a game. Okay, you can unlock that fucking loadout right at any time. You can switch your armor while you're respawning. So you don't have an excuse. I'm sorry. Like if the jetpack is bothering you, then you just got to deal with it. I mean. Because, jetpacks are great. What kid doesn't love a jetpack? Jetpacks! You think the whole game is broken because there's one thing that you have a problem dealing with? Well, two things, I guess I should say. And I guess that sort of brings us into the next and final armor ability of Reach. The
Here
big
it
one.
comes.
Yeah, Armor Lock.
Armor lock. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Armor Lock, which is the one that when we started this conversation about armor abilities, we were talking about the standard strategy of using battle rifles and sticky grenades. And Armor Lock, out of all the armor abilities, most clearly is the one designed to prevent that precise strategy, which is why it is the most controversial, most hated armor ability of all of them, of all the bunch.
If your strategy is BR grenades, then you hate armor lock because that strategy will not work.
Exactly. It sheds sticky grenades right off of you. It does that in the deep, not post-title update. It doesn't do that.
No.
And it makes you invulnerable for 4 seconds maximum. Personally, I don't think it should have done that. Even in the default one. The post-title and the title update, their upgrades for armor lock were the only ones really that I agreed with. What they did was they made it so that you were not you wouldn't take any damage, but if you were taking damage in armor lock, it would decrease the amount of time that you could stay in armor lock. So if you were being shot, in armor lock, that would mean you'd come out of armor lock faster. But your shields and health wouldn't take any actual damage until you were out of armor lock. And I think that is a more fair compromise. Armor lock, and also the one with the jetpack. I think
The hang time.
yeah, I tend to attribute that sort of stuff to the fact that Reach was Bungie's last game, and they didn't have enough time to finish it. The amount of time it took them to make Reach and ODST was all the time they had left with Microsoft. and they made 2 games.
And we need to save some time to talk about that.
Okay.
Because that's also another thing about Reach. But
talk about armor lock.
Armor lock. Okay, it's an armor ability.
Yes.
So when you think about the concept of armor in general, armor is you wear armor so that you can survive longer.
Yes, that's what it's for.
There's no other reason to have armor.
Yeah.
Okay? And armor lock is an enhancement to the armor's innate ability. I mean, you know, it's made out of this material that's tough, right? And then and then you have regular shields, which nobody thinks is overpowered, but that is in fact what the main thing that separates Halo from COD.
Yeah, with your energy shield.
If you play COD and you jump into a Halo game, whatever strategy you used in COD is worthless in Halo because everybody has shields.
Right.
But anyway, so here is this enhancement to your shield, which makes you invulnerable for how many? What is it?
4 seconds.
4 seconds. Okay. It also makes you immobile.
Yes, you cannot move while you have armor lock.
So out of all the armor abilities that are out there,
it's actually the slowest one.
Well, it's the one where in all the other armor abilities, they give you the ability to avoid the hit.
Yeah.
Somebody's shooting at you, you fly out of the way, run out of the way, go into something else. There's only one armor ability where the purpose is to take the hit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's for. You take the hit. Whatever you get hit with, there's going to be problems for the person that hit you. Yeah. You know, if they're coming at you with that ghost, you know, too bad for the ghost if you go in armor lock.
Yep.
If they throw that sticky at you, chances are that sticky's going to come right back at you.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's because they wait until they're right on top of you to throw it, which is the last. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, in my experience, I mean, people do that to me. That's actually the reason why I changed my control settings to boxer. You can't tell in the game, but that's what I'm using. It's because there's left trigger for melee, whereas most people, the default setting is left trigger is grenade. I changed it in Halo 3 because, you know, people would get close to me, they'd hit that left trigger just by instinct, and they'd throw a grenade on me. And I never had any stinky grenades to throw back, so I just switched it to boxer so I could at least hit them and get close enough to them that they die too. Which is what would probably happens most of the time anyway. But armor lock, again, that's what it's designed to prevent. You know, that people running up and throwing a sticky grenade on you. You know.
And it became known as the #1 get out of jail free card, and I never understood why it got that moniker, because it doesn't get you out of jail.
No, it doesn't.
All it does is if you're in a position where you got to use armor lock, 9 times out of 10, you're just postponing the inevitable.
Yeah.
You're still going to die.
Yeah. I mean,
it doesn't get you out of anything unless you're lucky.
Yeah.
Or you're using it in such a way that you know there's going to be some place you can go or something you can do once you come out of it.
Or if your teammates are helping you.
Yes.
But if your teammates are helping you, you weren't in jail.
Yeah.
I mean, they're calling it get out of jail free. You know, it's obviously that's a, oh, here I am using sprint because I guess I needed a DMR. Yeah, I left the DMR back there because I'm going to pick it up after I get my other armor ability back. Anyway, yeah, armor lock, it's not, you know, like we were saying, it's not a get out of jail free card. You know, in Monopoly, you know, you get sent to jail, and then there's this card that you can have, you know, but you don't start the game with that card. You know, you don't spawn with it. You know, I mean, it's a chance card, I think.
Yes.
So you don't, you know, it's kind of maybe you have it or maybe you don't. But yeah, that nomenclature did start with armor lock and it eventually spread to all armor. But
yeah, anything you do other than use a BR and a grenade is something that's getting you out of jail free somehow.
yeah, I mean, and again, talking about armor lock, that that's what saves Master Chief's life at the beginning of Halo 3. The fact that he was able to lock his armor, you know, is how he survived that fall at the beginning of that game. You know, if it wasn't for armor lock, you know, the game would have been over at Halo 2, you know.
Yeah, that kind of got missed.
Yeah.
And you know, actually in Reach, um,
when you go on to enter the Spire's shield, you know, you're falling, you're about to crash, and George says, "Lock your armor, Spartan." So that does also. It's armor lock is something that's always been built into every Spartan's, you know, suit.
because armor is supposed to help you survive. Armor lock helps make that happen.
Right. Also, the pass over to. Now, going back to what I was saying before about how I did find it overpowered that they made you completely invulnerable, which is the only real canonical issue I have with Reach, is because Spartans die in armor lock all the time. In fact, it's at the beginning of the first strike, where Fred put in charge a group of Spartans. They have to jump out of a pelican. There's like 30 of them. Every last one of them goes into armor lock, but only about half of them actually survive the fall. You know, I mean, even Master Chief, when Johnson first saw him, thought he was dead.
Yeah.
You know, and it was not a dumb idea because he very easily could have died.
I mean, it was Master Chief, so you know.
Well, right. So the game.
And you know, while he's falling, Cortana explains.
Well, no, Cortana's not with him at that point.
Well, no, but no, she's doing a voiceover, and she's talking about
yeah.
why did I choose John
Right.
out of all the other Spartans? Because he's lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've gone over all the armor abilities and all the reasons why people hated them and why they shouldn't have hated them, we need to talk about the game itself because Reach, in my mind, is a masterpiece.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, the amount of detail that went into this game far exceeds any of the other Halo games, including Halo 4. You know, God.
I mean, just for instance, your character in the game. Not only do you have this huge selection of ways to personalize your armor, which to this day has not been matched.
Right. I mean, you've got the firefighter voice, armor effect, knees, visor, utility, wrist, chest, right shoulder, and left shoulder, and your helmet. In Halo 4, you've got helmet, left shoulder, right shoulder, and then the rest of your armor. It's like, hey, it's helmet, shoulders, and the gang. Like, yeah. This one, I mean, God, this is why I'm doing this on my old profile, because I have everything unlocked. This is my Spartan gear. And, you know, you've got this, I mean, you've got that chest plate there, and then you've got this variant that I'm using with the arm there. And there's that, everything. Head to toe, you can customize everything. I mean,
And then it's that character that shows up in the game.
Exactly. You know, you don't, I mean, they didn't even attempt that for Spartan Ops, even though they could have.
Yeah.
But again, that goes back to the fact that Bungie uses the game engine in the cutscenes. You know, so getting the Noble Six character to dynamically change is actually possible in Reach. It's not really possible in Halo 4 because they use a different engine for the graphics. And you know, so yeah, there's that incredible level of detail. You know, not to mention the firefight voices. I'm actually using the Cortana firefight voice with this one. I also have the Master Chief one, but this character is a female, so it kind of looks weird. Uh, anyway, but they've also got like George, Sergeant Stacker, all noble team. They've got so many options. Of course, that was also true in ODST. You had firefight characters. You could choose to be Dutch or Romeo, or if you pre-ordered it like I did, you could be Johnson. Uh, you know, but Reach, you know, customization. You know, can't customize loadouts in this game.
But that I don't think that's necessary.
No, it also doesn't say a whole lot about, you know, who your character actually is. You know,
I think more importantly that Bungie was trying, you know, that Halo's a team game.
oh yeah,
Always has been. It's a team game,
yeah,
and they were trying to move the teams more into
teamwork.
teamwork, and in order to facilitate that, they were trying to get people to maybe think about specializing,
Yeah,
you know, and that's why those loadouts have names.
right.
Okay, you know, they paired things up in ways that they thought worked best. Um, uh, you know, like the only one that I know for sure is the one that I always use, and that's Spectre. You've got a grenade launcher, and you've got camouflage, and that is actually a pretty nice combination.
Yeah.
One that you don't get to use in multiplayer a whole lot.
No.
But I think it's effective. And most of the other, you know, what you got, medic.
Yeah, that's the one I'm using. Got there's a bunch of names that are built into the game that you can choose for your loadout. Let's see, there's medic, Spectre, there's Spec Ops, there's well, there's ones that are for elites too, like a stalker, warrior, etc. I mean, but it goes into way more than that. There's you can call it like John, Fred, Linda, George, June, like the particular names of the Spartan characters. You know, there's tons of them. You know, in Halo 4, you can just type in your own uh, name for a loadout, which makes it not really a specialization. It's just a customization, if anything.
And again, in Reach, all the characters were specialists.
Yeah, I mean, the Spartans, the noble team, they each had their own particular set of talents, and you know they made that clear in the advertising leading up to Reach. They, you know, in fact, the very first when they announced Reach, they just had the silhouettes of Noble Team minus Noble Six, and at first everyone thought it was Red Team.
Yeah.
Yeah, they thought, oh, okay, that must be Samuel. That's Fred there with the knife. Turned out to be Emil. Like obviously, this guy right here is Master Chief. Again, you know, that was a tease from Bungie. You know, that maybe they went a little bit too far with that. You know, with that teasing thing. Also, a little pissed off about the lack of scarabs in this game. Lack of scarab combat, I should say. Side note about that, there was actually the mission, I think it was Pillar of Autumn, you were actually going to get to drive a Scarab, but they changed their minds at the end. I guess they didn't have enough time to finish it, or maybe they just thought it was too much. Who knows? I think that would have gone a long way towards getting people to be more accepting of the game. But, you know, so to this day, the peak of Scarab combat is still in Halo 3, where you get to fight the two Scarabs at once.
Now the AI in this game.
Oh man, the AI, they are so much more advanced. these guys that you see coming out here are the Phantom. They're in a squad, and squads have certain names. This right here is called a jackal, or sorry, a hunter infantry squad, meaning that it's hunters and jackals. If it were jackals and grunts, for example, that's called a jackal patrol. If it's elites and grunts, uh, did I say hunters and jackals twice? If it's elites and grunts, grunts indicates patrol. Elites and grunts is an elite patrol. Elites and jackals is an elite infantry. Elites and skirmishers are an elite tactical squad, etc. There's tons and tons of squads to choose from, and when you're setting this up, man, how's Woods gonna get out of this one? He's just gonna
three
punch
brutes and there's a hunter coming.
4 brutes with concussion rifles and 2 hunters in the base. He's gonna punch his way out, I guess, if it works. Anyway, the AI in this game, each individual AI has more animations than any of the individual AI in Halo 4. To me, that's just the kind of thing I pay attention to. In this game and before, that move I think is the one that I don't remember from Halo 3. That one where they swing to the right. You could tell I was trying to get in that little nook there, but I couldn't quite pull it off. Anyway, uh, the AI, the elites. There's so much of a wider range of enemies. I mean, just in terms of the ranks of the individual ones. In this game, you've got elite miners, they're the blue ones. You've got the red ones, which are the elite majors, and then let's see, the next rank up is the ultras, which are the big white ones with the funny hats. Then you've got the spec ops, the camouflage ones. And then after that, you've got the rangers, which are the ones with the jetpacks. Then you've got the generals, the big gold ones. And then you've got the zealots, which only appear in campaign. And then you've also got the field marshal, the head elite in the campaign. He's the one who kills Cat. If you look closely in that cutscene, he shows up in the first mission. He's the one with the horns on his head. He's wearing standard zealot armor configuration, but the field marshal is the one with the horns. If you look closely at the Phantom in the cutscene where Cat dies, you look up in there, you'll see his horns. So he's the one that kills Cat, and he's the one at the very end of the campaign, right before you get into the Mac gun. He's the last elite that you have to kill. He's the one with the fuel rod cannon, and you do get to kill him eventually. But so there's that greater variety. And in Halo 4, you've got miners, majors. They eliminated the ultras, which are the toughest ones. They have the same shield strength as the generals, but they don't use power weapons, which means they use concussion rifles, and they use plasma repeaters and plasma rifles and needle rifles and they attack as a team, which actually makes them more effective as a unit than the generals. Um, the only ones more dangerous than that, I would say, are the rangers. They have a higher rank than the ultras, but their shields are the same strength as the elite miners, and because of that, they move around a lot more and they switch out. And by which I mean, if you start shooting at one of his shields goes down, he'll take cover behind one of his teammates, and But again, it's that kind of stuff. See, these things, these squads here you see, like here's a brute patrol squad. I can tell because it's brutes and grunts, and this squad will act differently than.
Yeah, now see that grunt that you just shot wasn't just an ordinary grunt.
I think the one I just shot was an ordinary grunt. But you see, you've got the grunt miners, which are the ones with the little triangles on their back. Then you've got the grunt majors, they have the little.
The white.
No. They have 2 towers on their back, but they're red. and then you've got the grunt. That was a grunt heavy, the green one, and then you've got the grunt ultras, which are the little marshmallow ones,
Yeah.
and then you've got the grunt spec ops, which are the black ones with the two little towers on their back. That's a major the spec ops grunt, and they're ranked. The thing is, uh, if you kill like if there's just a bunch of grunts, and you kill the highest ranked one, all the ones under that will panic.
Right.
If you kill the lowest ranked ones first, the upper ranked ones don't really mind that so much. But if there's two grunt majors, or like the one I just killed next to a grunt heavy like this one, if I was to kill that one first, the rest would panic. If I was to kill the other ones first, they wouldn't. And you know, that kind of thing also follows in Halo 4, but again, there's less variety in the Covenant unit, which means it doesn't work as well. See right here, these guys, those are the Ultras I mentioned.
I hate them.
God, I do too. They are a big pain in the ass. I think I'm able to kill the four of them here without dying, but it's hard. Because their shields just last fucking forever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, there's that. There's just more variety of enemies in this game than there is in Halo 4. This is the Covenant when it's just playing at its peak. I mean, you don't get tougher than these guys. But again, these ultras, that was a grunt ultra right there that killed me. These are the ones that they eliminated from Halo 4. I was looking for them. They're not around. I guess that, I don't know, I guess people just had kind of a problem with them. But yeah, see, they did get me. There. Usually I use the target locator on these guys when they come down in the drop pod, but I guess I didn't have it with me. Anyway, that one right there, that's a spec ops grunt. That's the highest ranking grunt. It's got black armor.
And I think that brings me to um, the state that the game was in uh, when Bungie left.
Right.
Now, the engine that they used on this game was something that they redid the engine from Halo 3. This one is called Megalon.
Right.
And they came up with this game engine, to have it do all of these things that we just talked about. The way that the AI work, they're able to work more AI into the game. Things just happen better, and more things were able to happen. The game was able to handle much more than the Halo 3 engine, whatever it was called, could.
Right.
But the other thing that they did, you never mentioned the fact that you can learn to speak Sangheili.
Yeah, they made the Covenant, this language that the Covenant are speaking. You can't hear it because I have the video muted. But there is an actual mathematical algorithm that can change any English word into Sangheili. So there's an actual elite language that they invented just for this game. I mean, good God, people. And people think this game wasn't finished. I mean, come on.
They think it was, even though it was rushed.
Yeah, it was rushed, but for what it was, for what they had.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, and this is what ticks me off about 343. Everything about this game can be tweaked.
Yeah.
Everything, every pixel can be tweaked, and they made it that way because they knew that once they released this game, they were done with it.
Yeah.
And somebody else was going to take over. I don't know if they knew it was going to be 343. I don't think they cared.
Yeah.
Okay. They knew that it was just that somebody else was going to have to do this game, and they knew that they didn't get it perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. They knew that things were going to have to be tweaked. So every button, every switch, every dial, every way to control this game was wide open.
Yeah, I mean, all the mechanics, in terms of uh, things like player speed, damage of weapons, recharge times,
Player size,
yeah, virtually everything in the game.
and so the new guys had to do was just say, just like watch people play the game, look at the statistics, and then they could go in and just twiddle some dials and tone up or tone down anything that needed to be changed in order to make the game more fun. And 343, I didn't do that.
No, well, that's how they did the. Oh, you mean they didn't do it in Halo 4?
No, they didn't do it in Reach. They did the title update,
And well,
which but they only concentrated on how the DMR works
um,
and
right,
sprint.
right.
And
That was
I mean, what they did was is they listened to all the complaints about the armor abilities and went in and tweaked out all the best characteristics of those armor abilities
yeah,
into worthlessness,
yeah,
and pretty much turned the game into a DMR and grenade kind of game.
yeah. That strategy, um, just to be fair, that's what a lot of people call arena based,
Yeah.
which you know, kind of weird. I mean, in Coliseum they had chariots and tigers. You know, that was an arena.
Yeah.
It was probably the most famous one ever constructed.
Well, see, that was another waste from 343 because uh, 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 Bungie also knew that um, uh, uh, players, really competitive players, probably wouldn't like Reach multiplayer the way that they had done it, so they came up with with the arena,
Right.
um,
The
which
pro-
was made specifically for um, competitive style multiplayer.
right.
Um, and again, it, you could tweak the heck out of that as well.
The problem with that was that you'd have a rating, the equivalent of a rank, but it would reset at the end of each season, and people just could not be bothered to prove their skills more than once.
And I believe, and people argue with me, but to this day I believe the real nail in the coffin for Reach was the lack of rank,
Visible,
the
visible,
visible in-game skill rank.
right. They have
Uh,
rank in this game, but it's progressive,
right.
meaning it never goes down. So it's just really an indicator of how many games you've played, not necessarily how many you won. You know.
And unfortunately, back in Halo 2, when they came up with the ranking system, um, uh, they called it a skill rank,
Right.
which it was not.
Right.
But
Just to be clear, there's really no such thing as a skill
I
rank.
have tried for years to get people to define skill, and we could do a whole show about that because
Yeah.
nobody can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, um, at best they want to talk about your kill-death ratio, but then the other side argues with that. No, it's your win-loss ratio, and well, which is it? One or the other?
Yeah.
There's some kind of nobody can define it. But the fact that rank did not, skill rank did not exist in Reach, um, meant that when you played the game, there was nothing in the game that said you were good
Yeah.
that people could say when they went into when they went into matchmaking, and because that didn't exist, those people didn't want to play this game.
Yeah.
And you know, you can argue about, well, no, it was the armor abilities, it was this, it was that, the other thing. But I'm telling you, if Reach had skill-based rank in the game, visible in game, just like Halo 3 and Halo 2, people probably would have looked beyond the other stuff about the armor abilities and played the game.
Well,
Because they, in order to get that 50, because remember what was going on in Halo 3 was that Halo 350 was the
yeah,
reason to play the game.
yeah, and that's actually, since we're talking about that, we didn't even mention that when we talked about Halo 3, but that's why there's no visible in